Okay,
Hmm.
it's the Ogre. Seen it already 3 games in a row for a very good reason. It just does its job, and you have that ultra carry now waiting in there for Boris.
Whoever they pick up for Boris is going to have some sort of built-in support systems there to work with. So the Ogre, excuse me, certainly a nice touch for two-based. Now on the black and yellow side, really, how do they respond? We saw a lot of pressure put onto Zero's hero pool in that second phase, so could be a situation here where, yeah, they just take what was left for them, which is a very good Mars selection into the Rubik as well. So we have seen ET so much of that particular duo because it just works so well. That combo is always going to be there.
Yeah, in addition to that, of course, it's Mars Rubik versus a Weaver and a Tide Hunter. This Rubik hero has been gaining so much speed, especially in the SEA version of this tournament, for a very good reason. Your spells are so good, they're so strong. Of course, Ogre, you're going to get chased around a little bit in lane, but that's also where pairing it with the Mars, it's just that successful. I'm really enjoying them picking these heroes together, and every single time, I'm surprised we're not seeing more bans on this Rubik. I guess a lot of teams can't afford it, but every single time we see this Weaver picked up, we're also seeing the Rubik as kind of the response, and they'll go for the two-based Boris Ursa, which is a classic hero for him. Don't think they wanted to really lean into the matchup versus Morphling, go for something like the Luna, which is also a very kind of classic Boris hero, but in very similar fashion, Ursa is incredibly obnoxious to deal with, and in that same vein, naturally builds a Diffusal Blade. If you ever get on top of the Morphling, all it takes is one Morphling, or one waveform, and then suddenly you're kind of out of defensive tools on black and yellow side. They're definitely playing around their kill potential more so than their save.
Yeah, well, we'll see if the Ursa is going to be able to sort of put that punishment to work for them. In the meantime, both teams taking aim at that mid lane position. Really, the only things missing, black and yellow, removing the Queen of Pain. Two base starting with the Leshrac ban. So at this point, you start to wonder what kind of mid laners are we looking at here, right? Do we want the more dynamic, more aggressive playmakers, or things that sort of focus maybe a little bit more on durability and team fight strength? Black and yellow decide, let's kind of split the difference. Queen of Pain first, the Kunkka taken out afterwards. So you're not 100% sure if two-base are looking to push the tempo or go for something more teamfight oriented, so ban out a little bit of both. Why not?
Yeah, and you have to wonder which team is going to value a hero like Lena, for instance, more. Of course, with Black and Yellow banning out both the Queen of Pain and the Kunkka, that leans more towards a hero like the Bat Rider, which I don't think is banned up. So they could definitely go for that kind of slammy pick. Of course, talking about Sammy Boy, the Void Spirit is still available in the pool. I think that's where two-based are really trying to figure out what would slot into this hero choice the best. Because I think ideally, Black and Yellow don't pick Void Spirit and then two-based look for a hero like the Lena. I don't think Black and Yellow would want to pick the Lena in this game. Just might blow up a little bit too easily, and then they could flip the script almost where you just pick up a Spirit and then suddenly this Lena is not going to feel that great. But that's the kind of avenue that I'm going for. In looking at two-base drafts specifically, oh, they ban out the Necro.
Okay.
Is it?
Ooh,
And they pick Viper. Oh, they're toxic.
all right.
Well, okay.
That
Well,
is.
I don't know. Does Mr. James want to play Lena into Viper? It's not a bad matchup, but there's got to be some degree of fear, I think, in this game. If you pick up Lena, you really need to not only own your lane, but you need to kind of be careful and scared for your life for pretty much the entirety of it. Man, Black and Yellow just do not want to lose lanes. They're sick of it.
I mean, what they come into this one. I think the record is sitting at like 2-8 for them, so they're they're kind of sick of losing, right? And after winning that last game against Thunder Predator of all teams, they're starting to realize, you know what, we might just be able to bully our opponents a little bit here. So yeah, that Viper pick's just not going to be fun, regardless of the matchup. But if you're two-based, really, what do you want to play? You talked about the Lena. There are still the other spirits in the Void and the Ember, I believe, in the pool. So you could try for one of those two. But as I said before, really, no matter what you pick, it's not going to feel great against the Viper. That lane's just kind of tough.
Yeah, they could go for a hero like the Invoker as well. I think that would slot in nicely. Of course, Bloodlust Alacrity, you're never going to complain. Of course, you don't have that ultra carry this time around, but let's see it. Okay, they
Hmm.
go for the counter pick. Classic counter versus the Wind, or versus the Viper, of course, where you simply... And then they swap it. Yep, okay. That makes sense. As soon as they see the Viper get counterpicked, they're going to put Sammy on the Mars instead. So it's a very interesting type of draft they've got here, but we'll have to see. So many teams, even in that second phase, whenever they were actually able to get the Tidehunter, were banning out this Viper for a very good reason. So this is the first game that we're actually going to see that break come into effect versus the Tide. We'll have to see how it ends up actually mattering.
Yeah, it's something that you sort of look at it in theory, it makes so much sense, right? And then a lot of the times in the games, we don't actually see it in a direct clash. But, well, I think this time around it is going to sort of play out in a way that I think Black and Yellow will be happy with. I'm just worried now. Well, okay, worried's probably the wrong phrase. Concerned, let's say, for Sammy Boy in the middle lane on the Mars. A lot of the times when we see the mid Mars, you sort of fall into a little bit of a trap because you want to play the Mars the way you would normally play the Mars, but you're a mid laner. You're going to be relied upon to do more damage than you would normally be used to on the Mars, running him in the off lane. Of course, with the armlet build that's kind of been popping up a little bit, it seems like more and more Marses, whatever. Marses sort of go for that more damage-oriented play, and even if you choose not to, you do have a Morphling on your team, so that's going to take maybe a little bit of that pressure away from Sammy.
Yeah, and that's where Sammy does need to choose. I hope he doesn't get too greedy because, of course, the mid Mars is paced almost like a mid Tiny. You get your Blink Dagger around that 10-11 minute mark after phase boots, you make your move on the map, and then you can just decide where you want to go. But I think in this game, Blink BKB, and then you're satisfied for the first 25 minutes of this game. But BKB timings are going to be incredibly important for the black and yellow side. Without them, it feels like they really are, or rather, are kind of vulnerable to getting styled upon, especially by Mr. Jeans, because you know as soon as he's done mid, he's going to be running at this Morphling, both supports. Of course, it isn't a Spirit, so it's not going to be quite as potent versus a lineup that doesn't have too many disables, but it's something. And both the Rubik and the Bane are not very good at defending themselves, especially not before they're level 6. So we'll have to see how Black and Yellow kind of move past that timing where really they don't have any choice except to group around Sammy Boy.
Meanwhile, you see this trio for two base. They're getting pretty aggressive here, maneuvering their way across the river. Meanwhile, Mr. Jeans didn't really move from the middle lane for quite some time. He is making his way over now, but kind of feels like at this point it's too late. Really should. Yeah, he's just going to go back mid. You sort of missed your opportunity to make some sort of play here. If there is going to be anything coming out from two base, it has to be this trio, and they're not really going to run into anybody. They do at least get the rune out, though, as Sammy will lose that foot race to the Shikuchi to Weaver, and that does get them 3, and the 4th is actually just sitting here in the river. No one really went for it, but there we go. Jubei will make his way over, they'll get some money for themselves, and we'll get the laning stage underway.
Yeah, and
Do they commit to the tri-lane here? Empyrean and Widge are both heading top, so could be a full tri-lane setup. Could also just be a singular attempt at First Blood. Also, I'm just now realizing Widge has some weird rainbow stuff going on there that is hurting my eyes, but he is going to try and make the move in. They're going to look for Zero quickly. They get the Earthshock down onto him as well, so they have the slow. Zero not really able to maneuver right now. He's a Viper. He just can't go anywhere, and they do manage to get that First Blood play.
yeah, I think just not knowing where Widge was, very patient from him, and of course you're stacking Valkyrie right now, but at the same time, you get to kill the very, very immobile hero, and Nick is also getting hit up pretty heavily here, and there isn't very much that either of these heroes can do. They even placed the sentry out in the middle just because they think that there's a lane ward. They thought that it was too fast of a rotation up onto this Viper, and unfortunately, early levels, this is when the Viper should be, full stride. But once Boris gets his boots, gets an Orb of Corrosion, well, they're just poking Nick, too. This is so obnoxious.
Oh, man. That is rude. Of course, that does leave the Tidehunter alone in the lane, something that Black and Yellow are now very much aware of, but it's a Tidehunter, first of all, and is Valky on the hero as well. He, well, is familiar with sort of having to play this solo lane from some of his stints on other squads, so I think he's going to be able to just hold his own here. This duo of Morphling and Bane don't really have a whole lot of kill potential onto that Tidehunter early, especially he's got 1 point up in the Kraken Shell already, so he's basically just ignoring the Gush. He really doesn't need it. If you're not looking to get aggressive, you don't really care. You're not going to Gush for last hits. That's just not really mana effective, so may as well skip it entirely.
Yeah, it's very strange that it's working out as nicely as it is. Of course, Valkyrie is maybe getting contested a little bit more for the last is. He literally doesn't have a lane partner to play with, but at the same time, there's no real way for them to poke him out. He has the Ring of Health queued up as well, so once it happens, he's kind of just safe. He even lets the small camp pull happen because he's gonna farm the small camp, and there's nothing the Jubei can do here. There's no relevant damage that can actually be put out by this Vayne.
Back up top, they continue to be annoying onto Little Nick. That time around, though, there was a turnaround. Zero comes in for the damage. Little Nick went for the telekinesis, but Widge, recognizing once the telekinesis is gone, that is literally the only lockdown available. He TPs back to base, and he's going to be just fine in Widge. Look at him. With that first blood play that he was able to get, he's already got an urn, so there is a whole lot that this Weaver can do to be just unbelievably disruptive if they start looking for some of these aggressive plays, because he has the urn. He does need charges, but looking for something. See Widge maneuvering his way into that west side jungle. Maybe snatch a bounty rune while he's at it, but also just look for the straight up wraparound, because Little Nick is walking into that position, but I don't know if the support duo has the damage for this kill. Really does feel like they need the Ursa to make it happen, but they can at least continue dishing out the damage and continue burning through Little Nick's regen.
Yeah, they just keep on getting these trades going for them. I mean, Boris is more or less untouched in his lane. They're trying to put the focus back onto the Ursa, but at the same time, they're just kind of unable. Voyage is also just being incredibly obnoxious to Sammy Boy, who hasn't gotten his bottle refilled in quite a while. He stole the water rune, he stole the bounty rune. I'm assuming he's going to go for maybe a play up top, but I think Boris, yeah, they finally got their man.
They're able to find that kill. The question is, does Zero get away with this one? He is very low in HP. And yeah, Widge will punish him for it. Shikushi gets onto Little Nick as well, so they might look for another one. The Fire Blast into the Swarm. That Beetle just sapping away the armor. Looks like Little Nick will fall as well. Widge picks up the double, and well, it is still unfortunate that they lose their carry, but that's a pretty fantastic trade-off for them. Speaking of trades, however, over on the other side, Valky one or two hits away, but that last bit of damage came from the Brain Sap, so once that's expended, they really didn't have anything left to work with, and Valky just doesn't care. He's going to have to sit and wait a little while with that Ring of Health going, but it is going to be healing him up.
Yeah. And honestly, they need to get a little bit more pressure. I'm surprised Jubei didn't place a lane ward just because then he could go for some more stack plays, but that's also where sacking Valkyrie is honestly working out very nicely for them.
Ooh.
Of course, yeah.
Is a rare misplay from Jubei there, not getting the pull. He is going to get the stack it. No, he's not. Wow. That, that just kind of sucks for the Bane. Back-to-back misfires there, and the lane is not really going to change up in terms of equilibrium at all.
Yeah. At the same time, though, who cares? Yamsun's just doing whatever. He's 30 and 15. Valkyrie is still struggling for some of these last hits. A lot of his are actually just from that small camp, so knock off about 8. He's sitting at more or less 19 last hits, at least of the real ones, but it's something, and he's doing a really good job of playing with the creep surplus, though. Yamsun actually is getting quite pressured. Doesn't really have time to actually go for any of these last hits under tower. It's just solo play.
Back up top, there's that tri-lane going to work again. They take down Zero, and Little Nick, that's a nice telekinesis move, but it really isn't going to be enough to matter. It's only a temporary setback for Boris. As the Ursa just continues to push his way forward, they're going to find the kill, and I mean, this tri-lane for TOOBASED, it's in really the perfect position because no one from Black and Yellow can afford
Could be worse.
to do anything to help. You're not going to get rotations out from the Mars right now, although he is level 6 now, so maybe that will change, but you could not afford to pull Jubei out of the bottom lane. You didn't want to leave Yamsun in the 1v1 against the Tide, so that off-lane is just kind of forced to sit there and suck it up, really.
Yeah, and maybe you rotate Jubei a little bit earlier, but yeah, mid, that's your first arena. I think they might have got him.
They did.
Nice.
Mr. Jeans will be taken down. Sammy, he takes a little bit of damage on the back end, but those two supports don't have it in them to find the kill by themselves. So that is one of the really first big rotations we've actually seen. Little Nick, he did come in earlier to go for the sort of bottle refill on a Samuel Boy, but that time around they're able to find the kill, and is going to put that Mars in a much better position in that mid lane. So, well, Sammy in a good spot right now, closing in on those early boots. Question at this point is, can they protect the Yamsun? The answer is no. So, The Wind Ranger's able to make the rotation down bot, and Yamsun was just caught on pretty much max agi there. He was trying to manipulate the stats to get the max healing. Instead, he gets caught out and taken down, and now Jubei is alone under the tower, as they will push in. Shackle Shot connecting. Valky's gonna hit him up with the Anchor Smash, and Jubei should be finished off here.
Yeah, just nothing you can do. I think really that is the biggest problem of this black and yellow draft is who is the hero. It feels like it has to be Sammy Boy, and it's where he sets himself in a lot of these drafts as that main person, but he just has so many places he needs to actually be on his checklist. And I think really Zero's the one who needs the most love. He really hasn't gotten his time to shine just yet in this game. Whereas Boris already rotated out of the lane, I think respecting Zero's level 6. But I'm just concerned for whenever this top lane kind of goes back to static, we're still going to have Zero kind of scrambling for an item to play with. He's just looking at the Dragonlance right now, so no shenanigans with the Atos. Of course, that build's not really that good in the first place, but still, I think if they're unable to push down this top tower with just the Viper, then you're going to feel a little bit more pressured, but nice kill bottom.
Yep. Sammy's able to get in there, drops down the arena, and between himself and the Bane, they do find the pickoff on to Valky, but well, it did require the rotation. The Mars sort of moves himself in there, but they are going to be able to find something, and now Yamsun is going to take over mid for a little bit. So we're just trying to make sure that the Morphling can find safe farm, because at this point, he's not ready for a fight. He does have the Morbid Mask. That is a nice early step for him, but doesn't exactly get your Morphling into team fight position. As down bot, Valky TP's in, immediately takes a spear to the face, and walks away. As up top, Empyrean gonna get himself picked off. Zero and Lil Nick jump in for the kill. Boris, though, he was going after Roshan, the reason why he wasn't there in the top lane in the first place. So he does have the Aegis, and he's trying to get a bit of an angle here, but not really sure he wants that fight. If he had the support a little bit closer, maybe, but that's not going to happen. As, well, Sammy jumping in again, moves in mid, didn't have the arena up, but between himself and Jubei, they've got the lockdown and the damage, and they do finish off the Wind Ranger. So black and yellow starting to get a little bit more active and aggressive, and this is what you kind of need Sammy to do on that mid Mars.
He just needs to ping pong in between the lanes, go for these nice early kills. Of course, he's done such a good job with Jubei that now Jubei is actually level 6, so they actually need to be pretty concerned with his positioning, but that's also where this Nightmare and the Spear setup, not as good as Magnus, but it is going to feel pretty nice for you. We'll have to see how he decides to go forward. I think he is getting that Yules as opposed to getting an item like the Blink Dagger early, just because it is a pretty monstrous Yules game, and you always want to have someone building the Yules versus the Ursa. It just ruins any chance for him to actually finish off a lot of those kills that he tries to go for. But Zero
been jumped in on. And he did throw down the Nether Toxin. That's a nice move. And Jubei's coming in. He's going to throw the Fiend's Grip out, but that doesn't really help Zero survive. Maybe Jubei can get the kill. Yes, he can. So it is going to be a 1-for-1 trade, but now Jubei's in trouble. Boris is coming in. Urshok is there. TP will just barely complete. And Boris comes up one attack short there for the kill. So really just a straight-up trade-off on the offlaners there that black and yellow... I mean, technically they lose out on by all of 6 gold, but they do get more experience, and they're able to pick up that kill with Jubei just sort of rotating his way in on the back end.
Yeah, it's pretty nifty. I think, of course, Boris does get the kill there, so even more gold towards that Diffusal Blade, and then we're probably going to see him running at this Morphling even more, but both the carries just playing adjacent to each other, it's pretty funny to watch, because neither one really wants to be here, but with the bottom tower already getting claimed by that Tidehunter, Boris doesn't really have anywhere else he needs to be, so he's probably gladly going to trade his Aegis if you can get another kill onto Zero in the top lane. I think Zero's really the one who needs to be a little bit more careful here. And he also changed direction. He is just going to go for the Atos instead, saying, I don't have enough lockdown coming in from my Rubik and Bane. So here we go. If they find Zero, that'd be a really bad way to start off this engagement.
Someone to close the gap, and it looks like they actually might go for Yamsun instead. They'll hit him up with the Swarm. Ignite comes through. The Fire Blast, though, is onto Zero, so they really, at this point, just need to pick a target. Valky, though, he does have the Ravage. They're going to try to hold it, but Sammy's coming in, so this fight is getting way more complicated. That forces the Ravage into play. You're going to be able to stun up, too. Sammy, meanwhile, getting hit by the Fire Blast. They'll stun him up. They get him with the Shackle as well, so Sammy gets taken down. Lil Nick... he stole the power shot. He'll throw it in there, but it's not really going to be a whole lot of damage at the moment, and Zero still on the run. Hit up by the Spirit Vessel. Boris, though, with such little HP, he really can't afford to go any further forward, and the Fade Bolt Oh, bounces its way in to burn through that Aegis, but you said he'd be willing to give it up for a kill on 2-0. It's not quite that kill, but it is going to be a core kill all the same as they take Sammy out.
Yeah, not just that, it's a lot of time wasted. And I think losing Sammy Boy there is just worst case scenario. I think they really wanted to find that trade out a little bit sooner. Both supports, unfortunately, weren't really in a position to make that fast rotation. And Nick, he's got a good steal right now, but it's just damage. Without the grip, you're really not going to see Black and Yellow start these fights unless, again, it goes back to Sammy. If Sammy Boy is able to begin the party, then all is well, it ends well. But without him, there really isn't any beginning to these fights. They're looking for Widge right now in the top lane because they want to move onto this tower, just play with a little bit more space, but I think Widge is just a little bit too aware. Widge is a full Spirit Vessel, by the way. He is incredibly farmed.
Yeah, he's been able to get quite a bit for himself, and I mean, take a look at the stat line, 5-0-1, so a lot of those kills that the tri-lane was picking up were going directly into his hands. So he is in a pretty solid spot right now for himself. The question now for TOOBASED, well, can they continue to be aggressive here, and where do they really look? You take a look at the Wind Ranger. Maelstrom's picked up already, working towards a BKB, so we're going to have a nice bit of damage coming out on that front, but you still kind of feel like they need somebody to start those fights. We don't really have the Blinks up and running yet. Valky is working on his, but it's still about 1,000 gold away, so that might just be maybe the power spike that they're waiting for. Get a Blink Dagger up, you have that threat of the Tide to just jump in there, and then you can really look for any fight that you want.
Yeah, precisely. I think then you might be able to start these engagements off catching your opponents off guard, because right now we're in that type of game where everyone needs to run at everyone to start these engagements. That's why Sammy going for this Yules, it's a really good Yules game, but Black and Yellow still kind of struggle to just get their first foot in the door, and I think that's where we might see some farm trade, a little bit of patience from both sides. Of course, one team has the Morphling, and they found Widge.
Okay.
Nice little sentry from Jubei.
That
That's
is
perfect.
actually more important than usual because Widge, we mentioned a moment ago, he was 5-0, so he gives up a little bit of extra gold for that streak, and it's into Yamson's hands, but mid, Valky jumps in. There's going to be the Ravage down onto 2. Sammy's dropped low, but look at that Rebuke. That's going to do a nice bit of damage. They were sort of fighting in the Nether Toxin as well, so all of a sudden, well, simply TOOBASED are the ones sort of losing multiple heroes, and Boris, you need to leave. He is looking for the TP, but he's not going to make it out. He gets pushed back by Yamson. Yamson... That felt risky. He was just going to man up with the Fury swipes on him, but he was able to shift enough to strength to win that engagement, or at least keep himself alive long enough for his teammates to win it for him. And as it stands, that is a massive swing in momentum. TOOBASED lose pretty much everything in that fight, and they didn't find any of the kills they were initially looking for.
Yamsun is the huge winner as well. Of course, starting that off with the kill on Widge in the top lane, he just gets to TP on the mid tower and then gets the turnaround. I think that was really weird. Usually when you ravage heroes, you want one of your heroes to be right-clicking. I think that was way too defensive from TOOBASED to try and push onto the enemy high ground like that. I think Mr. Jeans was possibly looking for a nice little shackle play onto Zero, because they keep on running at Zero trying to find these kills, but they've been unsuccessful so many times now.
Yules into Spear.
Yeah.
That's not exactly the target, though. Pretty much the tankiest person on the map for them to go for, but hey, it did the job. It made sure Zero was getting out of there and there was not going to be any sort of chase potential, but now, if they really do want another fight, somebody's got to heal Zero up. He's really not in a great spot right now, and you actually see him just sort of falling back and farming up. So, not going to look for the engagement. Or maybe they are, Sammy? Okay, just a casual Yules to make sure Widge doesn't push any further in.
Yeah. We'll have to see, because I don't know. You need to make a play on this ward if you're TOOBASED. You want to get one of these scrappy skirmishes going for you, but at the same time, they're trying to force these waves in, and TOOBASED, without the best wave clear, aren't really responding, I think, appropriately. They're making a lot of their moves in this bottom lane, trying to force in those towers, but that's where Nick also has not died down here in a very long time. He's been the sole protector of the bottom lane, and having the Shikuchi is so obnoxious.
And now, okay. They're going to try to make a move. They've got Sammy coming in here as well, so Boris really doesn't have any backup. He's going to pop the Enrage, trying to fight, but there's that Yule's breaking it up. As you said, so important to have that item, and really Boris just has nothing, and this is an interesting maneuver. They're going to go try to go back in. They might just have to settle for Lil Nick here, though. I'm not really sure they can get onto any of the core heroes. They are attempting to do so, but now Sammy turns around. There's the arena into the spear, locking down Widge. Lil Nick comes in with the Fade Bolt, but the time lapse is there from Widge. He is still alive, and now they do get the chance to go onto zero because he and Sammy turned around for the fight. So Widge, acting as the bait, gets them 2 core kills. Lil Nick at least is going to be able to fall back, still having that stolen Shikuchi, but that is incredibly well executed, and if you're black and yellow, just slightly overestimating their own strength.
Oh, definitely so. They didn't even have to use the Ravage. I think everything was so pent up on trying to take out Widge, who they definitely have that kill, but unfortunately, Widge has a Hood of Defiance. I think might be going down in the top lane.
Yeah. Same play as last time, too. The Nightmare into the Fiend's Grip, and, well, this time there's no streak for them to take advantage of, but if Yamsun continues finding kills like that, then he will continue to make progress towards these early items. He's got the Lincoln Sphere, he's working on the E-Blade, so kind of interesting to see the Morbid Mass just be left alone for now, but Yamsun is taking advantage of his opportunities. Highest net worth by a pretty spectacular margin for this point in the game. There's just really not been a whole lot of punish onto him.
Nope, definitely not. And that's where Yamsun becomes absolutely terrifying once he actually gets this Ethereal Blade. Of course, you'd be looking at BKBs on all of the 2-based cores. I think the Ursa is probably going to wait on his as much as he can, but Mr. Jeans is desperately going to need his. Otherwise, you're going to be in a very sad Dota 2 game. I think really there's kind of a lapse across the map. Nobody really can make these plays without the Blink Daggers. I think Valkyrie just got his completed, so we could look for another Blink Ravage. Oh, this is not a good fight.
Valkyrie wants in, though. He's going to try for the Ravage. Have they gone too far on the black and yellow side? So far, well, I was going to say no, but then Sammy gets hit by the point-blank Ravage. Yamsun, though, is going to make his way over, and now with the Ravage committed, they know they can just go straight in. Valkyrie's going to get taken down. Widge trying to get in for the little bit of extra damage onto Jubei, and they do manage to get it. But they need more. They're tracking down Zero. Yamsun morphed into the Wind Ranger to try and get that extra bit of stun down, but it's not going to be enough to matter. Zero will fall. Lil Nick dead as well. And Widge may have gone a little bit too far forward there, but he's just trying to keep Yamsun in attack range. Unfortunately, his teammates can't close the gap, but at this point, it doesn't really matter. They've taken the teamfight win that they wanted, and unfortunately for them, their timing on Roche is a little bit off. If Empyrean goes back in, they will see it respawning right now, but instead he just drops down the ward, so they don't know Roche is back up, and it's a fantastic fight, but it's a bit of a missed opportunity immediately afterwards.
Yeah, it definitely feels a little bit unlucky for them. I'm waiting to see Mr. Jeans or someone just try and power shot it, but actually in the mid lane, Widge.
They get the jump in. There's no time lapse anyway, and he's stunned for too long. Didn't get the chance, so they're able to find a return kill. Now they get a very long range Atos in onto Empyrean, so they're going to be able to pick off the 2 supports. And now, you look at black and yellow, they're going to go for the tower first. That is probably the most safe and immediate objective, but if they check Roshan, then they're going to see that it's up, and TOOBASED may not have the numbers to contest it. They will see it's happening, obviously, as they do have the ward down. Had the ward down, it's immediately removed, but can they go in with 3? Can they afford to wait for the supports to respawn and then go in after? Not 100% sure, because Roshan, it is dropping pretty rapidly for this point in the game. Black and yellow are just going to try to get in there, and you do see TOOBASED. They're trying to mount a response. Power shot in. So, oh my god, Sammy. Almost dead. Valky jumps forward. He does get the kill with the Gush, and now the Roche attempt has to stop. They have to deal with this immediate threat as a Tidehunter will be taken down, but mission accomplished. Mr. Jeans gets in there. Zero gets taken down. Meanwhile, Boris will push in from the north to take down Jubei. And this is where things get a little bit awkward for the black and yellow side. Lil Nick is on the run. Mr. Jeans is just slowly but surely going to track him down, or maybe he's not. Lil Nick's able to get himself out of there, but while he was sort of running that gauntlet, the rest of TOOBASED finished off Roshan. They got the Aegis into Boris's hands, and he picked up the shard as well. So this Ursa is now really ready to go.
And that was a 9-minute Roche before, so it's just incredibly fast. And unfortunately, they just took way too much damage going for that Roche on the black and yellow side. I think they want to make that play knowing that there isn't Ravage, that Valkyrie is more or less just a pipe, a Blink Dagger, and a little bit of minus armor. But then Sammy just gets picked by him. That was kind of in hilarious fashion, but...
Nice setup there onto Mr. Jeans, who has no mana. for the Wind Run, so even if he did somehow manage to come back down and get off a move, wouldn't have been able to do so. Now, Boris is going to get hit by the Fiend's Grip. This is going to be his first life taken out pretty much for free, and they've actually got Widge as well. They hit him with the Spear Stun, and TOOBASED are in trouble. Valky, he tried to blink in, but he actually gets hit up by the Telekinesis first. They still get the Ravage out, though, and that is really just a defensive Ravage to get Boris away, but he may not be getting out. The Eul Scepter is going to be there. They need to stun up Sammy to make sure he can't get the Spear, and I do believe that's enough to get Boris away, but now Empyrean, your sacrifice will not be forgotten, but it is certainly a sacrifice that he has to make, as they will bring him down. Boris gets away, but all that momentum's gone. Age is taken out of their hands. Team fight definitively lost, and Black and Yellow are now looking to actually continue hunting. They really are trying to track that Ursa down.
Yeah, man, what an absolute bloodbath. They're actually just four-man wipe into four-man wipe into four-man wipe. Nobody wants to be alive in this game, but this is now a huge opening. They had to use the Ravage defensively there, and it still really didn't work out. I think now you're just waiting for Mr. Jeans to be up again. Of course, he still has his BKB, arguably the strongest hero on the two-base side, but okay, Sammy is completely alone.
I don't know about this. Yeah, he doesn't have his backup yet. The Eul Scepter is going to be thrown down defensively, but look at the TPs coming in. They know he has no one here. If there was someone in position, they would have already come in to help. So Sammy, trying to do a little bit too much there. I really don't know exactly what the plan was in Sammy. Yeah, I'm gonna maybe a little bit of a laugh at his own expense there, as he thought it was, I guess, just the Ursa. It turns out it's about 4 or 5 heroes, and he does get punished for it, but that's a bit of a freebie. We'll see if TOOBASED can now do anything off the back of it. They are pushing their way into the north side jungle. They know that there are heroes here because they were losing that outpost. Will they be able to catch up to anyone? Lil Nick is making a run for it. Yamsun's getting himself out as well, so really, this is a bit of a problem with this lineup right now. Without the blink from Valky, if he doesn't have it up, no one else is really capable of starting these fights at the moment.
Yeah, and yet again, Nick just does a really good job. He does so well on this Rubik every single time, just finding the spell that makes him an incredibly strong hero. It's just the Shikuchi. Every single time I feel like I look bottom and I see he's there, pushing in the wave, being obnoxious. I think Black and Yellow did go for a smoke just a moment ago, looking for another pick. I think Jubei plays some nice deep wards at the same time. Look at how deep both teams' wards are right now. Everybody just wants to kill their opponents on the other side of the map. Nobody wants to play in their own side and wait it out. I think everybody wants to get aggressive here. The big winner, however, is still just Yamsun with his F-Blade. He's just going to be able to kill pretty much anyone who isn't BKB'd. If they can catch Mr. Jeans before he gets it off, it's just a dead wind every single time.
Yeah, and once the Wind Ranger's out, all of your damage is basically concentrated in that Ursa, so need to try and keep the Morphling at arm's length if they can. That's much easier said than done, obviously, given Morphling's entire, kit is designed to avoid that exact problem. So we'll see if they can make the initiation. Lil Nick, that's a nifty play.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Gets in, gets a free tower, gets out, drops the voice line for good measure, and he is free to go. But Sammy, okay, they've caught out Valky. The problem is this kill has been one that they sort of struggled to get a couple of times, but well, let's see what they can do. Nightmare is going to be in there, but the reinforcements are coming. Widge wants in, but look at that. Mr. Jeans hit up by the root, so he's not able to jump in, and Sammy actually wants part 2 of the fight. They go in with the arena into the Spear Stun. Yamsun coming in as well, and that's going to be Mr. Jeans taken down. Empyrean dropping as well. Widge just has to make a break for it. And Boris, okay, he had the blink. He knew he was going to be able to get that off in time, but he sticks around for a pretty substantial amount of time after that engagement. And Black and Yellow, well, they just really keep on finding some of these plays. Sammy goes from overextending down bot to the same style of play, but this time he actually had backup, and they are able to make it happen. Now they went down into the Ursa as well. They get him with the Euls into the Spear. Nope, the Spear's actually onto Widge. He steps in front of it, doing his best Secret Service agent impersonation, but I'm not sure this is going to be enough. Boris is now getting body blocked up. Jubei comes in with the Fiend's Grip, so Boris is still in trouble. Widge, he's working on an Ags, but he doesn't have it now, so the time-lapse cannot be there to protect his buddy. Boris will be picked off, and Widge is going to survive, but he just really has to run, and actually he has no TP, so he's just going to have to walk out of here. But with the Shikuchi, yeah, he should make it out unless he runs directly into somebody, and I don't think that's really going to happen. Zero, little preoccupied, trying to get in on to the Wind Ranger, but said Wind Ranger pops the BKB, going in with the Focus Fire as well. That E-Blade, okay, coming in handy. Defending Zero against an entirely right-click based sort of kit in the Wind Ranger, so it is a nice play from Mr. Jeans, right? You take the haste rune, you get in a little bit of damage, and you do force out an item or two, but really did want that kill on a 0. They're not going to be able to get it, and now both sides are going to look to, look to reset and gear up for the next engagement.
Put a cork in it.
Yeah, and then fortunately, I think that next engagement might just end up around Roshan, unless Sammy.
Mistimed with a spear. And I'm not sure he's getting out of this one. The power shot in from long range snipes him out, so Sammy Boy kind of alternating here between fantastic initiations and then a couple of misfires. A 0 going to get hit up here as well. He's slowed down by the gush, but they still have this tier 1 tower, so he is going to try and use that for cover, but look at that shackle in from Mr. Jeans. The Nightmare, though, out from Jubei, is going to kind of break up that initiation. 0 now gets hit by a friendly E-Blade, but it's not friendly for long, as Mr. Jeans snipes him out with the power shot. But now Sammy Boy, after the buyback, he wants to get in, but a 1v1 against Boris is still going to be rough for him. Yamsun now trying to come over to help him out, but Sammy is just rapidly dropping. He needs to fall back. Mr. Jeans won't let him go, though, as Sammy dies a second time. Meanwhile, underneath the tower itself, you see Valky and Widge just trying to run interference. Widge will be taken down, and now the Tide may be dropping low as well, but he is falling back to his teammates. Jubei tries for the Fiend's Grip, blocking down the Wind Ranger. Look at that shackle. It's in perfectly from Yamsun. Morphed into the Wind Ranger, and now this fight's just going to entirely turn. Boris is hoping he can take the fight by himself, but... well, I was going to say he couldn't, but he actually does give Yamsun a bit of a run for his money, but the Attribute Shift keeps alive the Morphling, and TOOBASED... They get one hero out there, but that goes pretty poorly. Initially, it seemed fantastic, right? You get 0, you kill off Sammy twice, but Yamsun is really starting to approach that danger zone right now where he can just take on everybody.
That's so sick from him, too. The only way he can defend his Bane gripping is by hitting the shackle there on the Ogre. It's just ridiculous from him. He's got a full Scotty as well, so he really is just feeling like the strongest hero in the game. There's no one who can really do anything versus him. You have to catch him without any mana, and then he doesn't have the shift. He can actually die in those circumstances. Problem being, he's not really allowing that to actually transpire. Just feels like, even though Sammy Boy's having a little bit of a rough game every once in a while, because it does feel like sometimes he's getting 3 peoples in his arena, and some people he just misses the spear on and then dies to them instead. So, you know, Sammy Boy's keeping it interesting, but everything is going to refocus around that roach pretty soon here, Bez. There you go. There's your type A.
Well, the thing is, he has the initiation, but yeah, now they need Yamsun in for the damage. Look at that shackle, though, coming out. They're able to lock down Valky. They'll finish him off. Widge is now going to be targeted up as they get the root down onto him. The time lapse comes through, but it's only going to delay the death. Really can't cancel it as Yamsun. Well, they needed him. They got him. Sammy, at this point, some of those plays earlier were looking maybe a little bit too cavalier, but if he knows the Morphling's coming up behind him, that gives him so much more room to operate with. And sure, you know, Sammy thinks, I jump in, I don't have any damage, but I don't need to. The Morphling can just sort of follow it up, and they find those 2 picks. Now they might be looking for a little bit more. Boris was spotted out up in that top lane, but yeah, smart choice. TP's out before anyone can come looking for him.
Still got to be very careful. You need this basher on Boris, then your chances to actually kill the Morphling do rise quite substantially. Unfortunately, every single time anyone is getting initiated on by either the Wind or the Ursa, Yamsun just Ethereal Blades his teammate, and then they survive for another 20-25 seconds before they actually end up going down. And I think it's very greedy from Black and Yellow to actually not go for these BKBs. I think 0 switching up from his, I just thinks he's going to be fine without the Halberd, and we'll see if that actually ends up being a factor, because nobody is playing like there's a tie in the game so far, and Valkyrie definitely has dropped the ball in at least recent times, but I think if he can find 1 or 2 big Ravages, then suddenly both the Mars and the Viper die incredibly quickly in those timings.
Yeah, it feels like Black and Yellow have adapted to the scenario in which Valky has not been able to hit them up all that consistently with the Ravage, but just because he hasn't been able to hit the mark does not mean you can assume he will continue to do so moving forward. So, as you said, would like to see those BKBs. Sammy's at least queued one up, and he does have quite a bit of gold towards it already, so we'll see if he does go through with that. For now, though, he's looking for the fight. The smoke just pops, so they know there's someone on the high ground, but the spear will miss, and it would have only been onto Imperium. But Yamsen comes in, looking for the shotgun play. The Ogre, though, not dead yet. Now Valky does get off that Ravage, hitting onto pretty much everybody. The Arena did get thrown down by Sammy, and now Little Nick, look at that. He stole the Ravage. He's in onto multiple heroes as they'll take down one. The problem is they lost Sammy there, so now Yamsen really has to do a lot of the heavy lifting damage-wise. He's trying to get in onto Boris. The Shackle Shot is going to pin him and Mr. Jeans together. But, I mean, Yamsen, he's just not getting a lot of opportunities right now. They're doing such a good job of keeping him contained. A Shackle out from Mr. Jeans keeps him locked down, while both of the supports on the black and yellow side will fall, and now Yamsen just has to TP away. Zero tries to make it out as well, but they'll cancel his TP immediately. And Boris is in there to finish things off. 4 kills, 4 2-based, directly into the Roche attempt. Aegis Cheese and the full Ag's Blessing for them.
Yep. There you go. That's your throw. You can't play NA Dota without having at least one team throwing their mind away, and now this is a huge opportunity. It's funny, yet again, Yamsen isn't the one to die. He still survives somehow, but that was your Ravage onto 4. Of course, it did actually get stolen, of course, but it still looked good for Valkyrie, and it split up a lot of that engagement. Not just that, both the Ursa and the Wind were able to avoid a lot of the damage coming in from the Mars and the Morphling by just BK being on time. They just had that much more time to work with whenever both of the supports on black and yellow had to save their disables for after Ravage, and then unfortunately everything just fell apart once Yamsen had to split his targets, because he's got a lot of damage with the F-Blade, but aside from that, we're still waiting for his big damage item. There's no Butterfly, there's no Daedalus queued up yet, and he's not getting a Satanic, so Yamsen just straight up right-clicking these heroes is actually kind of slowing down, especially having that Wind Run. He's looking for the MKB, or was looking for that MKB. He has no good way to kill this Wind.
Yeah, he can morph into the Wind Ranger all he likes. He can throw out those shackles left, right, and center, but in terms of actually killing off of Mr. Jeans, it becomes a bit more complicated, but, well, we'll see. And maybe one of these item pickups will be enough to sort of save the day for him. That MKB is pretty much done. Well, yeah, I say pretty much. He's a little ways away from it, but already sent the courier over here to the secret shop, although he did pretty much make it there on foot anyway, but he didn't know that at the time, so Yamsen should pick up that item. We'll see if that's enough to really make the difference. I think the number one thing, though, at this point is still going to be some of these BKBs coming out. Sammy did get his, and Zero still doesn't really want one, so we need to see how they approach these fights. I think the BKB on Sammy is going to be important. The last time around, you saw he died first, even before some of those opposing supports were taken out. So I know he doesn't really do much damage right now because of the item build, but you do still need him as that frontliner for more than a few seconds after the arena gets dropped down. As Jube gonna get himself hit up here, blown up immediately by Boris. Now TOOBASED, they want more. They're pushing their way forward. Who can they catch? They have eyes on Sammy, but he's able to blink himself out. Where else do they go? Zero is in their sort of line of fire. He does have the ward, though, so he sees these heroes coming. It's just, there's really nothing for him to do. He can't get away. He's going to get hit up by the Shackle. Boris comes in for the damage. And Zero ends up getting taken down there. So they're going to lose a couple, and now Lil Nick maybe spotted out mid. He's got the Shikuchi, though. Yeah, he's just going to be able to constantly spam that out, so he should get away. But TOOBASED, where do they go now off the back of this? They've still got the Aegis for about 2 minutes, but we haven't really been able to see much from them in terms of taking these objectives, something that their lineup outside of the Wind Ranger is not going to be fantastic. Well, fantastic in terms of their ability to actually do that, but I like these plays from Black and Yellow, especially Lil Nick. We mentioned earlier with the Shikuchi he was able to get away, but he continues to just sort of pop in and out, making sure someone has to come looking for him.
Oh, is Mr. Jean's going to turn around? He's so obnoxious on this hero. I mean, he can never get hunted here, but yeah, doesn't play around at all.
Does he have a... He does have a TP, right? Yeah, he does. Okay. So he could leave when he wants, but at this point, you continue to act as a distraction. Not really any reason to leave. Jube, however, well, less of a distraction, more of an easy target. Valky and Boris able to find that kill, and now this party up top gets a little bit more complicated. These heroes on the Simply TOOBASED side are going to start looking for them, so do they clear out right now? They're still sticking around, and slowly but surely it feels like TOOBASED are going to get closer to them.
Yeah, they've got to be careful. Of course, they don't know that anyone was up here. They placed this vision, really good vision from Empyrean, but scouting out heroes kind of previously walking out of the base, so everyone up here right now is somebody that hasn't been dealt with as of just yet. They're the Rats, but we'll have to see. I think someone's going to react now. Maybe Nick decides to stick around, but as long as these creep waves aren't actually meeting the towers, the team that can't take objectives will still struggle to take objectives, and that's infinite time. Yamsum finally has his NKB, so we'll have to see if this is Mr. Gene's kind of end to his fun. Of course, not going for the undispellable win run. I think he was expecting maybe a dispel or two coming out from the opposing side, but we also see BKB queued up from Yamsun, and I can only imagine that, yeah, this triple BKB from Black and Yellow is going to be incredibly important for them actually playing the game. He's getting chased down, though. It's 25, so it's hard to find, but Yamsun, they're going to catch up soon.
Zero.
What a shackle.
He tried for the Atos there, not going to be able to get it now. Yeah, Zero's just straight up dead. He's going to be able to reflect a spell or two, but doesn't do him any good in terms of staying alive. Meanwhile, well, the two members of Black and Yellow over near the middle lane were trying to smoke up, but there's nothing for them to do now. They know where everyone is on the opposing side because they just lost their teammates, so not a whole lot to be done. I mean, they are dropping some wards down. This is a very nice little scouting mission from Jubei, so they do at least have that going for them, but feels like they need more right now. They snipe out the courier, at least from the Wind Ranger, but in terms of forcing a fight, pushing for any sort of objective, really even finding pickoffs, feels like things have slowed down a little bit for the Black and Yellow side, but we've come to a very awkward point in the game where all the heroes who are left alive are on their opponent's side of the map, so they're out here not necessarily because they're looking for kills, but because their own side isn't really safe anymore.
Yeah, and TOOBASED are not reacting. They're not coming back. Again, we're in a similar position that we were in 20 minutes ago, where all of the vision is on the opposing side because they want to get aggressive on each other, and I think Empyrean tripped up.
Valky, though, jumps
Nice
in for
Ravage.
the Ravage, connecting onto 3. Yamsun, he does TP in, though, so they're going to try and turn this fight around, but they've just lost so much already. Yeah, Yamsun's got to go. He's lost 3
he's gonna regret it.
teammates. Will he somehow get out? Oh, forced into the Wind Ranger, but he's getting slowed up. That's going to force out the waveform. I think for now he's going to be okay, but here comes Boris with the blink and the slow. Yamsun, he's going to get stunned up, and yeah, he is pretty much dead to rights here, even with the attribute shifting. It's not going to be enough. Yamsun gets the kill, godlike now on the Morphling, and TOOBASED, they may not be great at taking objectives outside of the Wind Ranger, but when everyone on the opposing side is basically dead, you can still get it going here as Mr. Gene's actually not even using the focus fire. They're going to hold it for a high ground push, and realistically speaking, they can do this unless Black and Yellow are willing to commit some buybacks. They don't have anyone to defend this. Zero's throwing out really just the Nether Toxin, and I'm not sure that's going to be enough.
No, I don't think so, and that's where did these BKBs come a little bit too late. Of course, they don't want to buy out for it. They have buyback on the Morphling still, and this is inevitably only going to be 1 Rax, I can only imagine, but we'll have to see how they decide to go forward here. Roche could be respawning in 35 minutes, but man, watching these Urso lineups push into towers is just the best thing ever.
Yeah,
The sarcasm is real. The sarcasm is real.
It's not great, but, you know, they got it. They finish it off, and well, now we'll see if they can sort of maintain that edge around the Roche, but as you said, it's pretty close to respawning. 20 seconds out from the fastest respawn, so if their luck sort of pans out for them, Roche would respawn in a situation where the Morph is still dead for around 10 seconds, and that would sort of cripple the ability of Black and Yellow to contest it, but that would require someone to actually check the pit, which as of right now they don't really have, but Varian's making his way over, but the timing will not line up for them. About 2 more minutes on that respawn, so instead, they'll look for a relatively easy kill there onto Sammy Boy. He's alone in the middle lane, and well, it just feels like that's too far forward given the situation. He had a BKB, he had a Yule Scepter, he didn't get to use either one of them, so the defensive itemization really doesn't matter.
Yeah, and that's what happens when you do get Abyssal Bladed. Of course, they ping up the ward immediately, they know exactly where it is, but now it's just TOOBASED kind of locking you out of the map. Without Nick able to steal the Shikuchi, he can't really make a safe break for it. They're taking away a lot of these avenues that Black and Yellow have used before to try and get onto that split push game, but unfortunately, once they're stuck onto the high ground, there really is nowhere else to go. They're smoking with Yamsun's BKB, but if he dies here, that is game. Right there. If he dies without buyback in the next few moments here, it's going to be a slow death, but almost assured. And they broke on smoke.
Boris jumps in, Abyssal Blade's there, straight onto the Viper. Zero not dead yet, though, so they do get him back with that defensive Ethereal Blade, and they're going to be able to reset, but we also need to point out, over on the other side of things, Valky, he just finished off a refresher, so the double Ravage could potentially come into play, and we talked about the fact that they did eventually sort of end up going for these BKBs, but if you can wait them out, 2 Ravages is really seemingly more than that black and yellow lineup is going to be able to deal with.
Oh, definitely, and with 15 seconds up on the Roche, we can only imagine that that is where the final fight of this game is most likely going to end up, and the supports are just a little bit too early.
Yeah.
Jube has a BKB.
Okay, he's going to survive the initial push in, but yeah, now Boris comes in, and the physical damage is too much. Little Nick, though, he did buy back. The Yamsun is able to TP out, but now this is a problem. You back away from the Roche pit just as it's respawning, and you still don't have sort of your full strength. Sammy? He's going to jump in, looking for the fight onto the Weaver, but they need a little bit more follow-up damage. Instead, they get Valky jumping in with the Ravage, connecting onto 3. Yamsun, however, trying to push his way into the fight. By the time he gets there, though, Sammy's already dead, but Yamsun is doing a pretty substantial amount of damage. Valky is forced to eat the cheese, and that's not going to be enough to keep him alive, but now Boris getting into the fight, looking to jump forward. He was momentarily disarmed, but the bash comes in. Zero's going to get locked down, finished off, and Yamsun has to retreat, running out of time, or ran out of time on that BKB, so retreats back into the base, but at this point it's him, it's Lil Nick, and it is a potential buyback from really their Viper, and that's kind of it in terms of defensive capabilities.
Yeah, and we'll have to see if Mr. Jeans just focus fires the tower or what they want to do here. Of course, Roche is alive, but they want to look for the win. I think, unfortunately, the win is most likely getting this bottom racks, but ooh, Nick.
Jump onto Nick. That's a dieback from the Rubik. He's gone for 2 minutes, but Zero, he is going to buy back. They're going to try to get this down if they can take the Ursa out, but he's just going to pop the BKB and TP home. They don't have any means to get through that magic immunity, and, well, they hold the racks. That is going to be a pretty substantial victory for them as they remain in this, but they had to use so many of their own resources to really hold the line there.
Ooh, Sammy, he drew the line. He knows exactly what's going on here. I think, did this ward scout it out? They smoked underneath the ward. I don't know if they can make that same trip over to the pit with the same amount of confidence they did before, and it's not even in time. It's not even close. And of course, when Valkyrie does respawn, he's going to have 3 Ravages, most likely here. So that is even better. More for TOOBASED as the 4th Roche goes their way. I really am scrambling for a way that Black and Yellow kind of win this game. They need to figure out a way to kill everyone except for the Ursa or the Tidehunter without them reacting. It feels like there needs to be some way for Black and Yellow to create this incredibly split fight. If Sammy Boy could try and isolate the supports with the arena, try to push everyone to one side of the fight while everyone else is trying to kite the bear, possibly with the nightmares. I mean, Juve's got a BKB, so the only way for them to actually cancel that grip is the Abyssal Blade coming from himself, but it really feels like we need some god fight from Black and Yellow. Otherwise, it's a sad death. It's a sad, slow way to lose whenever this wind is really the make or break. Every time you get shackled, you basically lose something at this stage of the game.
Sammy's not going to get caught out there again. He TP's back before anyone can come looking for him, so at least able to keep himself safe on that front. Well, the same can't be said for the Morphling. Valky jumps in, first Ravage down, second Ravage in as well. This Morphling dangerously low on HP. Can they keep him stun locked? Yes, they can. Yamsun, oh, no, they can't. He's able to get away. Valky goes in for a 3rd Ravage, but Yamsun had popped the BKB, so the Morphling is going to be able to get away. His teammates, though, may not be nearly as fortunate. They've lost one already as Jube will fall. Sammy pops his BKB, but he's low on HP. He's going to try to throw down the arena here. And I think for the time being, Black and Yellow are holding. Well, maybe not. Boris able to get in there. He'll take down Lil Nick, but the disarm comes out from the halberd, so the Ursa has to be incredibly careful here, but he wants to push in anyway. Sammy going to get slowed up by the Diffusal Blade. They push in now with Widge as well, but Widge doesn't have a whole lot of damage, so they need the Ursa back in, and they are going to be able to find exactly what they want. Sammy Boy taken down. Zero stunned up, finished off as well. No buybacks from any of these heroes. So now it's down to Yamsun to pull off some sort of miracle. 1v4 with Boris holding on to the Aegis. See if he gives it an attempt even. He is going to try and push in now. There's the E-Blade combo, so they do burn through that first life. But the second Boris is back up. Yeah, he's going to go right back in for those tier 4s, and I don't really think Yamsun can do that again, and even if he does, it's not going to be enough. The Ancient's been exposed, and TOOBASED slowly but surely Gonna start to whittle away at it. Yamsun will try and make a move, though. Pushing in, looking for whatever kill he can get onto Empyrean, but there's gonna be a friendly time-lapse to save him. All the while, Mr. Genius just didn't care. He kept on hitting up on the racks. He will now turn around to help get that kill, and that's gonna be the end of it. The GG will be called, and Simply TOOBASED will take game 1.
What a weird game of Dota. It really was one team losing, dying, feeding 4 heroes, and then 2 minutes later, Sammy Boy gets a 4-man arena, and then they end up killing Valkyrie before anything. It was literally throw after throw after throw. I wonder what winner probability says. Yeah, it was literally just them rocking the boat over and over and over again, really until that third Roche ended up going into 2-base favor. That's when they really had enough resources to kind of win the game outright. But I think that's also where all of these conscious decisions to wait and bide your time versus Valkyrie's Tidehunter, there were so many instances where I think if they just put their foot on the brakes, just take a step back, finish off some of these BKBs, finish off some of these items, then suddenly the enemy team doesn't have an offlaner and you can actually play with a little bit more confidence in these forward engagements. Unfortunately, there just wasn't a situation where, again, after that third Roche, they just kept on playing into it. It was a little too late. There were some fantastic plays from Yamsum trying to keep them in this game as well from Little Nick, the stolen Ravage, the stolen Shackles, so many nice spell steals, but it just doesn't end up mattering because the Bear gets the fourth Aegis, and then you just kind of lose the game. Mr. Jeans as well, even though he had kind of a quiet game, he was slowly but surely consistently getting kills. He ends up the highest KDA out of anyone there with 18, which is kind of crazy because it didn't really feel like he was murdering everyone, but I guess just getting a kill every 2 minutes for the entire game ends up with a pretty nice KDA score.
Yeah, and as you said, it didn't really feel like Mr. Genius was just going in there and just slamming down kills one after the other, but that damage does come into play. It wasn't exclusively the Ursa that Black and Yellow had to deal with, which is part of the reason why I think they struggled so much to make that adjustment in the later game, because they disarmed the Ursa a couple of times. You can hit him with the Yule Scepter, but he's not the only one now hitting you with that damage. So Black and Yellow fall short in this first matchup, but game number 2 is going to be coming our way in just a couple of minutes here. So we shall see what game 2 has in store and how it's really going to affect the standings. Simply TOOBASED have now secured that all-important first point. They're very much like a second to sort of catapult themselves over both Black and Yellow and Arkosh. So we are going to be stepping away for just a few minutes, but when we return, the final match of the night, game 2 between Simply TOOBASED and Black and Yellow.